Bronzino. What can I name with that? Welcome in Laughing Museums. My name is Cedric and today we are talking about Bronzino and one painting in particular that I spent a lot of time looking at yesterday. One of my biggest pleasures in life is to go to a museum and to look at only one single painting for as much time as I want. Literally, the security thinks I'm completely crazy. I'm planning to steal Mona Lisa, stuff like that, right? But the truth is, I'm just focusing on looking at only one painting. Of course, I do that in museums I've been before. And yesterday, I was looking at that magnificent Bronzino. It's a funny story. I'm going to tell you that in a moment. But first, two things I want to share with you guys so you understand a little bit better. The name Bronzino is absolutely amazing. It's because his skin tone apparently was a little bit darker than the other Italian Renaissance painter he was working with, and so they nicknamed it Bronzino. I'm going to do an entire video on nicknames of painters in Italian Renaissance that is quite fascinating. So Bronzino is considered as what we call a Mannerist painter, if not the best Mannerist painter. Mannerism is a style of painting that is hard to define. It's hard to define. It's a late Renaissance painting, so we are in the middle of the 16th century, late 16th, so really the second half of the Cinquecento. And Vasari, one of the first art historians, used to define this as the best way to paint. He called it la bella maniera, and he found in Bronzino a forza, so kind of a power, something very powerful in his work. And I do agree that yesterday I stood in front of that painting for I don't know, maybe 45 minutes, and I saw literally that forza. And I haven't read the life, La Vita, this life in the Vita, which is the name of the book by Vasari, the life of Bronzino. So I didn't know that he found that forza the same, which is quite amazing. And he named it in his book Vasari, bella maniera. So bella maniera is what defines Mannerism, which is supposed to be painting like the antique, of course. Renaissance, it's a rebirth. It's a French word that was used in Italy and in France as well. It's a rebirth of the antique way of painting. The best way was to copy the antique and try to transcribe nature the best way as possible with la bella maniera, the best way to paint. And strangely enough, this modern way of painting is supposed to consider exactly the time Vasari was himself painting and commenting other painters, right? What is fascinating with Bronzino? Two facts. First fact, that painting, this crucifixion in particular that we're talking about today, is a painting that was only given back to Bronzino in 2010. Before that taking my cat away from the scene, before that it was given to a guy named Fra Bartolomeo. Fra Bartolomeo, I used to see his work every day at the Louvre. There's a fantastic painting called Noli Me Tangere, and it's that moment of the Christ when he reappears in the garden as a gardener, and Mary Magdalena wanted to touch him, and he said, "Noli Me Tangere, do not touch me." So you still have to believe, and that's the definition of faith. Absolutely beautiful, by the way. Bronzino is defined by two things. I've seen Bronzino all over the planet, right? The Met in New York have some. I went to Besançon in France to see one. I went to in Besançon. There's a famous Pietà, a mother really holding the dead Christ, and you can tell on her face there's no feeling, no emotion, nothing. She's even not really looking at the dead body of her son. There's a really big mystery in that mannerism when he pushed the button a little bit too much maybe, but I think he did it on purpose. When you don't need this emotion anymore. There's something about emotion that is strange with Bronzino, kind of a lack of emotion sometimes that is, I think personally, quite interesting. So what fascinated me with that, and another painting I want to talk about by Bronzino is in London. It's this, forgot the name, with Cupid, and so it's truce with time. Anyway, it's an allegory. I'm going to write the title, and this allegory about the vices is really just a way to show the vices instead of reporting the vices, which is something that Bronzino was very good at doing. He was also famous for doing the portraits of family members of the Medici that you can find in Italy, and then you can find in the Met in New York, and some at the National Gallery in London as well. What is fantastic with Bronzino, and I think is really as a student of Pontormo, so he was a student of Pontormo, another Mannerist painter. So Mannerism was basically started through Michelangelo and Raphael, and he had many students, Bronzino himself, that will become fantastic, made fantastic careers as well. So really an entire style of painting by Bronzino. I don't really know how they could attribute that crucifixion to Fra Bartolomeo, which has a completely different style to me. Plus, if you compare that Christ that we're looking at here in Nice to this Christ, which is in Besançon, you can definitely recognize almost the same model. To me, it's almost the same guy, right? But yesterday, by looking at it very carefully, and I really encourage you to do that if you have a favorite painting, and if you have some time or a museum that around your place that you can go as much as you want, a gallery, whatever. It could work with a sculpture, it could work with a monument, it could work with a photography by Cartier-Bresson, whatever, it's working really. Take your time, go back, look at it, and just look at it and try to see, okay, so what's normal, what's weird, what's, just look at it again, right? Just look at it one more time, try to change your perspective and just look at it, and okay. So yesterday, as I was looking at this Christ, I realized the first thing, I really took the time to look at it, and I'm like, okay, why is a cross exactly fitting that room that clearly is an imagined room that does not exist, okay? The alcove was a classic representation of an infinite, so godliness, by the way. But the cross is way too big, so it can fit in the square, but it can't fit in the alcove. So the Jesus is way too big for that room. It's like Jesus is bigger than the infinite, or Jesus is, as a prophet, bigger than God, or godliness, something like this. So the prophet is bigger than the idea of God, and that's something quite essential when you think about Catholic faith. Second thing I noticed, the hands, right? The right hand is closed, the left hand is open, and it's pointing exactly upward, which means, again, godliness, right? And the left is supposed to be linked to the heart. You have to imagine that for the first time, medicine has evolved a little bit in this time of the Cinquecento. So we know a little bit that the heart is on the left, how the blood flowing is going. So it's really keeping the place of the heart. So half of the body to me is like dead, and the other half of the body is like alive. Now, another few details that I like. Let's talk about the feet. The feet to be looked at, because the perspective, it's a super flat painting. So when you look at it, it's kind of pumping. It's really jumping on you, and it's really flat. And what interests me on this one is the feet that are crossed with a nail in it. We could talk a lot about the Roman crucifixion. There's many videos you can find on that, and again, that's not my specialty. The blood is going on the cross, and there's even like a little bit blood resting on the ground, right? And kind of getting out of the picture, which is kind of ironic in a way. So Bronzino is telling you, okay, you're looking at an image. The famous trucco. Trucco was used by Italian painter to describe what he's painting. It's a trucco. It's tricking you. Okay, there's a trick in there. The trick is to make you believe that it's real and that you feel the passion of the Christ, literally the passion of the Christ. He's all alone, which is really rare. Usually, either with a lot of people, or either with the two other guys, or here he's all alone. So the the loneliness of the Christ is kind of amazing. Like I think there's a message like for the prophets in general. I believe in prophets in many religions, and actually I'm more fascinated in religions with prophet than actually religions without prophets. In this kind of religion, and I met some guys in India that were called prophets by other people, quite fascinating. And religious leaders in general are very fascinating people. Anyhow, back to it. So you got the feet crossed, this kind of little bloodstream going down, right? The nail are really super clean and polished, and if you've been to jail for a few days, clearly your nail and your body can't look that clean. That's one point. Then I was reading something about Bushido yesterday, and the samurai used to polish their nails with stones, and then they used to finish polishing with special herbs. So it made me think about the samurai, and Jesus was clearly kind of a samurai without a sword in a way, right? So that the hands open, the perizonium. Perizonium is just a super fancy name for the bit of clothes that is going around the middle of his body. For obvious reasons. There's many debates on the fact that Jesus was naked. That's 100% sure. Well, not 100, but we know that people were crucified naked because the nudity was part of the things the Romans were using as a punishment as well, and being shown in naked is one of the first things on top of being crucified. So. And there's been some Michelangelo that wanted to represent Jesus naked, but many times the church has to cover it. Even the painting in the Sistine Chapel has been covered and then discovered, etc. So there's a long history about that. So the perizonium became an accessory that Jesus is wearing almost everywhere. This one is pink, and the pink is really working with the background, which is a bluish gray. So it's a color, and the cross, even the cross, there's two colors on the cross. Another color for the vertical part, and for the horizontal part, there's two different colors on the cross, right? And finally, the hair. I'm going to start with the pubic hair because I hope it's kind of embarrassing to talk about Jesus' pubic hair, but that's what it is. I'm just talking about a model on the cross, right? So the pubic hair, and that's not me talking that the Faculty of Medicine for men is mostly going in kind of a triangle to the belly button, okay? Here it's not happening, but the perizonium, and the guy is like almost completely shaved, okay? Which is kind of strange, right? Because if it's completely shaved, why did Bronzino leave some pubic hair that we can actually see? It's kind of disturbing because he's a man, he's real, right? And that's again the difference between a god and a human. Gods are actually immortal, and human beings to go that to reproduce themselves. Here go the genital. That's what we sexual beings, right? Really important, the definition of the religion as well, religions in general. So this is very disturbing. The perizonium is absolutely amazing. The beauty of that piece of cloth is just amazing. It's pink. It's kind of a feminine kind of a, not the color pink per se, but the way it's fit. Plus, if you look at it carefully, one piece on the left side is a bit longer, and the one on the right side is a little bit shorter. So you can see more of the right leg that you can see on the left leg. And the one on the right leg, the bit of fabric is going upward, right? So it's kind of a balance. And this whole painting is all about light and shade, and the play on light and shade is like completely intense. The whole painting is made on that. And so half of the body is dead and half of the body is alive. And that's the definition of the prophet, that the prophet is going in the Bible. So in the book is going to sit next to his father, as you know. And that's why this death is both very disturbing. You remember, Father, why did you abandon me? And one of the last things that Christ said. So very human. And then he was not abandoned really because he was going to become kind of a god. So he was going to attain godliness. Very disturbing. So we can talk about that for hours. If you get back to the painting, and that's something that disturbed me about that. I remember the day he was arrested, and I talk about that on that Louis Brea video, so you can look at my Louis Bréa video, that Saint Peter is cutting the hair of Malchus, the Roman soldier, and Jesus, as he's been kissed by Judas, is healing the Roman soldier, right? Jesus is healing the guy coming to arrest him, right? That's something only prophets can do, what great men can do. But then Jesus was a healer, as you know, miracles and things like that. And the next thing you know is like, so he can heal people, but he can't heal himself, which always disturbed me in a way. So that's a question very interesting. You can see also the piece that he has right there on the right side of the body, so it would be here, and this is, you know, the God who actually harmed me, so the famous sign of the Passion of the Christ. So really looking at details is a fantastic way to look at a painting. The feet are in front, I'm looking at my notes, the feet are actually on a triangular base, which is impossible. You can't stand on a triangular base, right? Why? Because the vision of the painting is so frontal that you wanna see the feet. If you put the feet like this, you won't see it, right? That the famous Mantegna painting that is in Milano, when you see the back, the bottom of the feet, right? And Caravaggio, so that's Mantegna, and Caravaggio will do something like this with the Death of the Virgin that is in the Louvre in Paris, and when you can see the feet of the Virgin that are kind of dirty, and the dirt on the feet of the Virgin was really, really troubling people, right? Yeah, I'm reading my notes again. On the left hand, so the one that is still alive, you can see the thumb is kind of making kind of a movement like this. It's pointing at something, kind of making a movement. We know the position of the hands are very important for the Christ, but for most religion, Krishna and Hinduism, etc., etc. So many prophets, right? Okay. One thing about the hair is that you can recognize that in the Pietà that is in Besançon. Again, I was saying it's almost the same model. It's a blonde Venetian, so kind of a close to redhead, and it's very clear. 3/4 of that face is in the shade. It's like the face is refusing the light, right? All right, so amazing painting by Bronzino, a really fantastic way to talk about Mannerism, which is an absolutely unique style of painting. To be honest with you, it's not my favorite style at first. I prefer really the early Renaissance primitive, 200, 300, 400. But there's something magical happening with Bronzino for sure. All right, you guys take care. Whatever you do, don't forget, do it with a smile. And if you don't do it with a smile, well, you're doing it wrong.